Hello, this is Sapphira, and this is my Q&Q number 3 for African American Latinx people in film and TV. Um, the quote that I chose is my first one from the book Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks, Chapter 1. And it's a quote talking about how the author found this kind of disturbing disconnect between modern audiences and modern people of color and the way that they felt about actors, some of the first black actors who played these stereotypes of mammies, toms, and coons, and mulattoes, and how they kind of have this disregard for them and ignore the fact that they actually did a lot of actual real work. And that's the reason why we have roles for black actors now. And it's also disregarding the fact that the roles we have for black actors now are still inherently extremely problematic. Um, so the quote is, um, they dismissed the old-time actors as Tom's mammies and spoke of them with boredom, disgust, contempt, and condescension, as if our bright new movies with their bright new black actors had arrived at something they called cinematic integrity. Um, this is really interesting because it's also doing the erasure, as I said before, of the fact that we still have stereotypes and we're still finding those in movies, and just basically blaming the older generation when they didn't have really to a choice of like, oh, if I don't want to play this role, then I can just not play this role. It's a problematic role. I don't want to do it. They didn't have that choice. They had to either play the role, they had to play Step and Fetch It, or whatever they wanted to do if they wanted to be famous. And they made a lot of money doing it, and they also caused a lot of change. And this is the erasure of that change that they caused. So that's inherently problematic. It also is like calling into question the fact of commodified blackness and what white audiences want to see. Because back then, white audiences wanted to see the stereotypes of blackness to reaffirm them of white supremacy. And now we still have, as Bell Hooks talks about, the commodification of blackness. And in the hip hop industry, how when they're playing into white stereotypes of violence, of drugs, of guns, of women, and misogyny, and these modern rappers in hip hop, they're making a lot of money. So it's like, what's the difference between that commodification of blackness and using the white negative stereotypes and the actors who didn't want to, but this was the only role that they had to play at the time, using their blackness to make money and to make a name for themselves. The other quote that I picked was from Bananas to Buttocks, and it's talking about how Latinx, there's this resurgent or this trend now for the Latino body because of Jennifer Lopez and similar like celebrities like her, that there is an acceptable Latinx female body now, and that like it's a positive thing and a positive stereotype, but it's still inheritively like problematic. And so the quote says, um, most important, if this much touted validation of Latin beauty indeed marks the genuine change in dominant aesthetic patterns towards what Shelha and Stem call an open, non-essential, essentialist approach to looks and identity, then why are prominent Latin beauties still dyeing their hair blonde, slimming their bodies, or wearing blue contact lenses to whiten their looks? Why, despite all the hype of Latinas reclaiming the curvaceous Latin body, are eating disorders increasingly rampant among young Latina females? I think this is really important because it's talking about just because the trend has started to accept the idea of Latina females of being beauty and having these beautiful bodies. Um, it's not the whole like spectrum of Latina women. It's one very specific section of Latina women with a very specific look. And it's a stereotype, and it's a positive stereotype, but it's still a stereotype, which is really harmful. So you're leading this, and it's not changing at all the system, it's adding to it. So even though there's this one type body type, and if you don't have that body type, I guess you're not, it's basically saying you're not an attractive Latina woman, or you should have this body type. It's also saying that we're still inside the system of Eurocentric looks being the idea of beauty. So my overreaching question is, how does representation in film and TVs for Blacks and Latinx people affect how they view their bodies? This could include like mammy stereotypes or stereotypes of being domestic workers for Latinx people, but how does that affect the youth, and how does it affect how they view their bodies and themselves? Thank you.